Well, this has been a topic that has slowly creeped its way back into the forefront for Vancouver Canucks fans. Today we are talking about maybe the biggest mistake that Jim Benning ever made. And no, we're not talking about the initial Connor Garland, Jay Beagle, Antoine Roussel, Louis Eriksson trade. That was bad, don't get me wrong. But today we are talking about the one that got away. A defenseman that the Vancouver Canucks had on their roster and that eventually became an absolute monster, not with Vancouver, but with the Florida Panthers instead. Today, we are talking about the lost hope and the giving up on a player that the Vancouver Canucks could very much be using right now in Florida Panthers defenseman Oliver Ekman-Larsson. Okay, no. We're talking about a different former Canucks and current Florida Panthers defenseman. I'm sorry about that. Today we are talking about Gustav Forsling. Because if you've been paying attention to the 2024 Stanley Cup Playoffs, and if you're excited for the 2024 Stanley Cup Finals, you'll note that Gustav Forsling, on a pairing with Aaron Ekblad, is poised to having a huge role in this upcoming series. He also has himself 11 points in 17 playoff games, including 4 goals, all of which are really clutch. Like, he comes to score at the most opportune times and the most important times consistently. He had scored 2 big goals against the New York Rangers. He had scored the series-winning goal against the Boston Bruins a few weeks ago, and now Forsling, as a first-pairing defenseman playing 24, 25, some even 31 minutes a night, he's making an appearance in the Stanley Cup Finals and hopefully bringing his A-game. As we had said, though, yeah, he isn't the only Swedish defenseman on the team that is a former Vancouver Canuck. Oliver Ekman-Larsson is right there. But what I wanted to do in this video was go over the profile and the story of Gustav Forsling because he is very infamously a Vancouver Canucks prospect that did not end up doing anything with this team. 27 years old, drafted by Vancouver in the 5th round of 2014, so the same draft with Jake Virtanen, Jared McCann, Thatcher Demko. Forsling was right in there. And honestly, for Jim Benning's very first draft as a Vancouver Canucks GM, he actually did pretty alright considering the talent that ended up becoming of that draft. McCann is an awesome player now for Seattle, Thatcher Demko is Thatcher Demko, and Gustav Forsling is a #1 defenseman. But of course, the Canucks didn't end up seeing any of that because almost immediately after Gustav Forsling was drafted in 2014, he was traded from Vancouver to Chicago 1-for-1 on January 29th, 2015 for Adam Clendening. Now, Clendening didn't really do much with the Canucks either. He did play some games. The philosophy behind this trade was that the Vancouver Canucks wanted to get a bit more sped up in their players' development. Adam Clendening is 31, so he's 4 years older than Gustav Forsling. Essentially, the Canucks were trading an 18-year-old guy for a 22-year-old guy who was a lot more further along in his development. He did play for Vancouver for a little bit. He had 17 games played in 2014-15, but he only had 2 points, and quite frankly, he didn't look all too great at all. Clendening then went over to Pittsburgh, and then he went to Edmonton, and then New York, and then Arizona, and then Columbus, and now he's bouncing around in Europe. He had played in the Liga this previous season, and now he's going over to the Kunlun Red Star in the KHL. So Adam Clendening was a total dud. He didn't really amount to anything in the NHL aside from being the rover that he was, playing from team to team to team and getting extended AHL time in that process. But Gustav Forsling, as a member of the Chicago Blackhawks, didn't really impress either. He had played with the Blackhawks and the Rockford Ice Hogs for a few years, but then he got traded to the Carolina Hurricanes, and this is where you started to see a change for Forsling. Forsling, along with Anton Forsberg, got traded for Calvin DeHaan and Alexei Saarela in 2019, so Forsling, now on his 2nd NHL team, was getting an opportunity to do stuff, but he played the entire season in the AHL. He spent 19-20 as a member of the Charlotte Checkers. He was pretty good, he was fine, but he didn't really get used in Carolina pretty much at all, ever since getting acquired by them. The season after, in 2020-2021, the Hurricanes put Forsling on waivers, and this is where things started to change for the better, because the Florida Panthers then claimed him, and the rest is history. Because once Forsling was acquired by Florida, he started playing significant minutes. He started getting NHL time, and he made the playoffs every single year. He didn't, but the Florida Panthers did. He started to get playoff experience, he started to get more time in the middle four, and then he eventually worked his way up to the top pairing. He had 39 points in 79 games played this season and 11 points in 17 games in the playoffs. He has been a monster. It's been 4 years of Forsling in Florida. He was acquired at 23 years old, and now he is doing what he is doing. This has been a huge story of ups and downs from Vancouver to Chicago to Carolina to the AHL over to Florida, and now they're seeing the benefits of that development. This is a top pairing defenseman who is so good at shutting the play down. He pairs so well with Aaron Ekblad, who was a first overall pick back in 2014. And Panthers fans may be looking at the best waiver wire pickup in the past 20 years or so. And Vancouver was the one that started it all. They were the Oppenheimer in this situation, kicking off that first domino by trading Gustav Forsling over to the Chicago Blackhawks for a guy that only played 17 games with them. How crazy is that, Jim Benning? I will say, I'll give credit where credit is due. I said it at the beginning of the video, I'll reiterate it here. The fact that Benning drafted 3 NHL caliber players, and not just 3 NHL caliber, but 3 good players in the 2014 draft in Demko, McCann, and Forsling. That by itself is pretty impressive. Of course, though, you could say that Benning didn't really do much. He just kind of made the first decision on the first pick. The Canucks scouting staff could be said to have the most impact on that draft class beyond the first round pick of Jake Virtanen, but still, for all the good that Jim Benning did with making this draft selection, he ultimately turned it all away by trading the player almost immediately. And this is where you start to talk about the future of other Canucks prospects of the past. Take a look at this tweet made by Mike Gould. The last time the Vancouver Canucks traded away a defense prospect, that January, immediately after they drafted him, it was Hunter Prustevich. Before that, it was Gustav Forsling. This was in response to a Ben Kuzma article, which was written about and published yesterday. Every NHL team has skeletons in their closet. Some just rattle much more than others. And this is an article about Gustav Forsling and how good he has been. So, let me know your thoughts in the comment section below. I will say the article by Ben Kuzma just kind of goes out there and talks about some of the same things, but he also brings up some of the extra comments made by Ed Jovanovski on Gustav Forsling. He's like a miniature Nick Lidstrom with more speed. He's never out of position, he anticipates, he's quick to jump the holes, he has a bomb of a shot, Jovanovski said on former Canucks draft pick Gustav Forsling. He also compared the guy to Lidstrom, saying that he's good. I mean, he makes an excellent first pass. You're not going to go wow because he lets the puck do the work and he doesn't overcomplicate things. It's his confidence. He has passed every test, and now with Aaron Ekblad, he gets the big assignments. He's a horse on the PK, and he anticipates better than anyone I've seen in a long time. Hi. There's not one weakness in Forsling's game, Jovanovski said, other than being smaller because he's only 6 feet 195. The rest of this Kuzma article, which will be linked in the description, goes out there and plays the what-if game. What if the Canucks had Forsling? Yeah, he would have been like the 3rd best defenseman on the team. Maybe 2nd. He was good. He's very good. And I think the Vancouver Canucks could have used a guy like that. But, of course, you know, the Canucks had to speed things along because they wanted to retool on the fly. They didn't want to rebuild. They didn't want to wait, which is why they traded away Forsling for Clendening. It's why they made the playoffs the next year in 2015, which was great. You know, they signed Radim Verbata and he was good, but only for a season. And I realize now we're getting into uncharted waters because that was literally a decade ago. My gosh, we're getting old. I'm getting old. There are people who watch these YouTube videos that are in their pre-teens. You're 12, you're 13. You were 2 years old when Radim Verbata was a Canuck. Ay. Let me know your thoughts in the comment section below about the one that got away. Jim Benning's biggest mistake that is still haunting the Vancouver Canucks in Gustav Forsling, an absolute monster of a Florida Panthers defender, and not even a guy who was given a chance with the Vancouver system when he was here. Let me know your thoughts in the comment section below about Gustav Forsling and how good he has played for the Panthers, how well he has played, excuse me. Listen, kids, I know y'all are in your preteens right there. Good is not an adverb. You cannot describe things like verbs and adjectives with good. Well, use well. Thoughts in the comments about how well he has played. I hope you enjoyed this video. And bye.